And hello, and welcome to the semifinals of the Eternal Tournament Series. I am Truedawn, joined by LocoPojo,
Hello, hello.
and we will be going into the dreaded Stone Scar Mirror between TV Kelly and Francois.
Yeah, it should be a fun matchup. We've got a lot of aggression on either side, and we'll see which of these decks gets to work out theirs upon the opponent. I'm real excited to see how this goes. I think Francois's heavier control focus with the heavy subverts should be really interesting. Maybe he'll get to steal a Flame Blast and really just secure that game, or maybe those Infernal Tyrants and Umbran Reapers will draw back the health that he needs to push through. Alternatively, we have the more traditional Stone Scar list, and we can see if that one beats on through and which one's going to be victorious.
Yeah, I think that Infernal Tyrant is big game. I think that's one of the differences in the lists that can swing the matchup in favor of Francois. Outside of that, I think the matchups just should generally going to be about the same stuff, just getting on board, converting your creatures into damage, and finishing off the game with burn.
Yep, TV Kelly's already got an excellent start with that Argenport Instigator early. Francois, similar Argenport. And yeah, both of them holding on to at least a removal spell to get rid of that unit. So it's going to be based on who gets the second unit down if Francois decides to keep this hand.
Yeah, this could be a reasonably play-draw dependent game. Although, when they both check each other's Argenport, then it could set to neutral. Although it's an interesting decision for Francois here whether or not they want to use the removal spell on turn 2 or put their own Argenport out. It looks like they're just going to use their own removal spell.
Yep, don't actually have the power for the Argenport, so unfortunately, no decision for Francois at all. If he doesn't hit his third power, he's actually going to be in a lot of trouble here. His deck is generally more focused towards the large late game threats and the interesting control cards. Without the ability to access that later game power, TV Kelly might end up running roughshod over him. We have Dark Returns in TV Kelly's list. He chooses not to use his on the Argenport.
That's interesting. I'm not sure what you're. I mean, I guess he's saving it for the Umbran Reaper, which is greedy but powerful. So if the game gets to a stage where he can recur that, it will matter quite a bit.
Yeah, I mean, in general, the Umbran Reaper is just a really important card in this matchup. It's pretty hard to remove effectively without getting that particular Entomb off. So with TV Kelly playing it mostly on curve, he actually doesn't have the double shadow yet, but he will hit his fifth power very, very soon. He may be able to push against Francois very, very quickly with those health swings.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate for Francois. He's stuck on 2 power. He did draw the Argenport, so he has something to play. But this Soulfire Drake is going to come in for 5. He has the Torch to deal with it. So it's possible that Francois can claw back into this game, but he's certainly on the back foot.
Yeah, with Kelly's Soulfire Drake getting removed, all of his units will now have Charger flying. That makes them a lot harder to deal with, and it means that Francois is going to have to do a lot more work just to get the same sort of benefits. And still sitting at 2 power, just a really, really rough hand. Suffocate coming out on the Argenport Instigator. TV Kelly's in a pretty safe position from this point onwards.
Yeah, definitely. I think that still going to be upon whether or not Kelly gets some power, can deal with these threats, can come back at the game. The second Soulfire Drake is a problem, or at least the one off Dark Return, rather.
Yeah, he doesn't even have to play the Umbran Reaper here. He just every unit in his deck now has flying and charge.
Yep, everything is a Soulfire Drake.
That's yeah, that's pretty scary. He's already got the cards that he needs to finish off this game, and anything else that he draws is going to be so powerful as to essentially just finish off the game on that front. I think that TV Kelly's in a commanding position for the rest of this game, even though Francois finally pulled into his third power.
Yeah, I mean, maybe if TV Kelly bricks for a long time, he could Francois can claw back in. He could annihilate this Umbran Reaper, maybe draw some running power. There's a banner, so like.
Corey very likely means a discounted card of some kind, though. A discounted card with charge and flying, most likely.
I mean, this is step 1 of 5, but it's step 1.
Yep, Umbran Reaper goes down. Francois now at 9. Obliterate pushes for 3, and Flying Overwhelmed Charge Champion of Chaos seems kind of like the deal.
Yeah, Champion seems like the better one, A, because it's more power, and B, because it dodges Annihilate.
Yep, this is lethal right now with TV Kelly's hand. 5 damage here and then 6 damage in the air. Francois playing out all of his power, clearly indicating that he doesn't have anything. So that'll be game.
Yep, the Soulfire champion of Soul Chaos, Soulfire champion of Chaos.
Briefly considering the BM removal on the steward. But yeah, Francois just not in control of that game since he was so heavily power screwed. But you get one. From here on out, it's Francois. It's the same matchup, and we'll see who gets unlucky with their power if anything happens like that again. Maybe it won't favor just TV Kelly this
Yep,
time.
we're moving right into game 2. It is best of 5, so we do not sideboard between games 1 and games 2. And I do think that you even saw when Francois fell behind so much on power, they were just very close to be able to claw back in. They were just like very slightly behind, and if they hit power just like a turn or two earlier, they might have been able to stabilize. But it's just going to be a very close matchup.
It's really tough to answer, in particular, those Soulfire Drakes. They're a pretty key card for Kelly in terms of just overall pressure, since Kelly is trying to play the faster game. Francois can eventually just steal a bunch of cards out of TV Kelly's hand. So if he manages to get Kelly to miss a step, he can win just by pulling out most of the aggro cards from TV Kelly's hand and having more aggression. But it really depends on who's basically playing the earlier threats and whether those threats are answered.
Yeah, this matchup is very much about who's able to extend to the board faster. And we see the 0 mana Suffocate doing a lot of work here. It allows TV Kelly to both suffocate and play the champion, but it looks like they're just going to not play the champion, which is weird because they probably would have played the banner if you're not doing that.
Yeah, you don't usually do that in this matchup. I think the banner is definitely the right choice here, but you don't want to play champion if you don't have the torch up. And he does end up playing it. He still has the banner to make the champion happen, and he can torch if there is a torch target, which at the moment there is not.
Yeah, this Death Strike is likely going to tag the opposing champion of Chaos for TV Kelly. We'll see if
Statuary Maiden. Yeah, we've got Statuary Maiden, lots of pressure there. TV Kelly has to Death Strike one of these targets, and he's probably going to go for the Maiden.
Yeah, I think you're content to trade Champions of Chaos here. You have a lot of gas left in hand.
Staying
but
on the
he's just going to pass.
Champion. I don't ever agree with this play, primarily because if you get that Shadow, you suddenly have a 5/5 to trade with. And look at this. This is much more of a threat to TV Kelly than the offered trade would be. And there's a second Champion of Chaos on Francois' side. That's a really critical setup.
Now TV Kelly's under a huge amount of pressure. He can double torch one of the champions or play one of the Death Touchers to not block particularly profitably, but block. But imagine the double torches coming here, but in either case, TV Kelly's in a bunch of trouble.
He may have lost this game the instant he turned to a more defensive strategy, like deciding to stay back and try and trade the champions rather than just simply trading damage. He has the more aggressive decks, so there's no particular reason for him to hold back here. And now that he has, he's going to have a hard time getting out of this situation.
Yeah, and this is the awkward spot for TV Kelly, where he has both the Statuary Maiden and the Steward of the Past to shut off the Entombed Trigger of Omen Reaper, but he has to play one out and then can't kill it. So he's going to take at least 5 from this. And then the champion's still coming in, so he's just taking a huge amount of damage.
Yeah, this is 9 damage just straight in the overall set. Like Francois probably has an Obliterate or something along those lines. Just ends up with 10 right there, so he could finish this game immediately. Yep,
and there goes the Obliterate. So Francois evens it up. Did TV Kelly win the first one?
Yeah, crushing victory for Francois, 1-1. And now we go into sideboards, and this is where we can really see the matchup change. Depending on how well these players have set up their sideboards and what sideboard cards they are looking for, this could really, really alter the way that the game works. Francois has some options. Plague, Infernal Tyrant. Infernal Tyrant is the main one that he probably is going to want to bring in. Shadowlands Feaster could be fairly effective, but it depends on whether or not he's going to actually have any benefit from stealing his opponent's units. I think most of Francois' sideboard is set up not against the mirror match, but more against larger armory decks and big Combre decks. So if TV Kelly's sideboard is set up any better, he might have an advantage.
Yeah, it's really on the side of Francois. It's really a Fertile Tyrant. Although if the games play out like the past couple have, Fertile Tyrant might be too expensive. It's very impactful. It's going to be a huge life swing, but it may never come down. So it's unclear how good that card is in the matchup, how often the game is going to go that late. But I do think if it does go that late, it's going to be one of the more important cards.
Kelly has some good cards for this matchup. Treachery, in particular, is going to be a pretty solid way to both increase his burn pressure and also remove some of the threatening cards from Francois's hand, like Umbran Reaper, before they become too big of a threat. Straight into Shadow is also a decent card in this matchup. It doesn't work very well against the Champion of Chaos, but it's very good against other targets, such as Statuary Maiden and
Yeah, definitely. They're both sideboards are going to probably be a little light. I don't see a lot on either side that I love. So games are going to likely play out in a similar fashion, at least with similar deck lists.
yeah. We have a Zindil's Gift as a possible play for TV Kelly. We'll see exactly what he ends up siding in.
Yeah. It would also I'm interested if he wants to put in some number of treachery. It's the discard is good. It deals with the creatures before they come down. It prevents like Armor Reaper triggers and stuff like that. Soulfire Drake triggers, but it's a card that's bad late. But I think it's on the ballot. It's going to be a good card for him.
Yeah, it could be very, very effective. So currently, we're not seeing quite what TV Kelly's running in. He's deleting other sideboards and trying out some new stuff. Francois, the challenge has been issued, and we're going to see if we are going into a game right now. There we go.
Okay, so here we go into game 3. It is currently 1-1. First game of sideboarding, and we do see the treacheries.
Yep, they are in the deck. They're a pretty solid side in this particular matchup. Obviously, Francois runs heavy on the burn. That could prove somewhat detrimental to Kelly, who will play out those treacheries, only get the 2 damage from them, and not get any sort of benefit if he misses a unit. But Kelly, with an early Corey or Varas and some options there, possibly going to be capable of getting him a little bit of pressure early.
His man is a little bit awkward. This is going to come into play depleted. The next turn is likely going to be spent playing either Vara's Favor or Quarry. So he's not going to be extending onto the board till the earliest of turn 4. And it's possible it's not even going to be that early. So we'll see if Francois is able to punish that, or if TV Kelly's draws line up where he can get something into play next turn. It looks like he will at least get a champion.
Yeah, it's not on time, but it is a 4/4, which is about the threat level that you're really looking for. Francois is going to have a hard time dealing with this. It's pretty much Death Strike or Flame Blast. And if you can't get rid of it, then it's pretty hard to deal.
Yeah, 4/4 multicolored creatures are some of the better threats in Stone Scar. It's really just like, yeah, that exactly 4-power Flame Blast is one of the few ways to deal with it. Francois is lucky enough to have it there, gets to jam in with the Argenport, and firmly has initiative.
Yep, TV Kelly plays down Steward of the Past. It's going to be targeted by a lot of different things, Annihilate or Suffocate. And if there is an answer, then it should be pretty solid. Otherwise, this card is a wall. It's definitely going to hold the Argenport Instigator down, and looks like Francois does not have an answer for it this turn.
Just to extend a little bit further with the Champion of Chaos, maybe draw something to remove it later, but it looks like TV Kelly is also going to extend out. We'll see if they choose the Umbran Reaper or the Statuary Maiden. They do go with the Umbran Reaper.
That's a good play. Yeah, I think that setting up the extra life gain as early as possible, getting your health into a nice total, and being sure that you have that pressure early on that forces removal out means that later on when you play Statuary Maiden down, it's going to be even harder to remove that, since Francois is much more likely to have to play like a Death Strike or something to get rid of the Umbran Reaper before it presses in for too much damage.
Yeah, you definitely want to get the Umbran Reaper down before your opponent plays their Steward of the Past or Statuary Maiden, so you're guaranteed to get the trigger. When you play it on into 4 or 5 mana, they're unlikely to have both the removal spell and the 4-drop.
Francois tosses an Obliterate for a Suffocate on the Steward. This is pretty wise play. He just wants to get rid of all of the threats on the board so that he can continue to pressure with his units. 7 damage a turn is a lot, and again, these Stone Scar decks do generally win by pressing with their units, not with their spells. So if he can get that kind of pressure going, that's really, really good.
Yeah, we see the discounted Umbran Reaper here being very good. The Statuary Maiden would have been okay, but Umbran Reaper is a thing that needs to be answered immediately. And I agree that the Stone Scar matchups they're very similar to just traditional burn decks, where you need your creatures to get some amount of damage and then have the burn close the rest of the gap. The burn alone can't do it. So the more damage you get with the creatures, the easier it is to close the gap.
Yeah, TV Kelly is now still in 10 health out of Francis's pool, and he's still behind 14 to 15. He's got 2 Death Strikes in hand, so he does have options to kill some of these units, but the Argenport Instigator and the Champion are doing exceptional work, and Kelly's probably going to have to blow both of his Death Strikes next turn just to live.
And that's if he draws a
Which
power.
does
But
not
we saw that this is just a game where Francois got initiative and just never gave it back. He got a head on board, had a creature when he untapped and was able to just go removal spell, removal spell, removal spell, and keep the pressure going.
Argenport Instigator's a really, really good early card. There's only 4 of them in the deck, so if you can hit it on time and then hit a champion immediately after that, that's your ideal curve out. It's really hard to get that particular curve out, but if you do get it, it's very, very strong. And that Infernal Tyrant just sealing up the
See,
game.
I told you it'd be powerful, right? Look how good it is.
I mean, Death Strike Torch here does buy
Oh, he actually
TV
can. Yeah, go
Kelly
to
a
1.
turn.
He is not dead.
Uh-huh. Like, from here, Francois just has to draw one of his burn spells. An Obliterate, a Flame Blast, a Torch, a Vara's Favor will do it. He opts for a Statuary Maiden, so no burn in hand just yet. If TV Kelly can sneak a surprise, 14 damage, then he might be able to take this away.
So, I mean, he can attack, force a block, but if he has nothing, like if Francois on air, I think that TV Kelly might be able to turn the corner on this.
I almost want to attack with both of those units. You need the pressure. You're probably forcing Statuary Maiden to block, but he might just not do that. So
yeah, I can't imagine he
does have
blocks
to go
them
for
in.
this. Yeah, you could potentially do it and like hold a suffocate, but it's just real hard to do. Oh, surprise Shadowlands Feaster.
Wow.
Oh, no way to deal. TV Kelly is down.
I'm not sure that's a card that's particularly good in the matchup, but it works out there and brings the game home. So we're up
Shadowlands
2-1
Feaster's a
Francois.
burn card, man. It's a 5/6 flyer that you can ambush out at a time when your opponent can't deal with it. It is a good way to deal 5 damage.
It's just a big
Very
Cabal
equivalent to a
Countess.
Cabal Countess, but he doesn't have Cabal Countesses in the side, so that's a perfectly acceptable way to do it.
Certainly to see Francois obviously electing to sideboard in some of the more expensive cards. Worked out that game. The game ended up going long. He was able to get ahead. So we'll see how this goes. Going into game 4, it is match point for Francois. So TV Kelly will have to battle back. And we do see a Suffocate here taking a quarry.
Kelly opening with a Sabotage. Yeah, it's definitely
Sabotage,
a pretty solid way to start the game. Getting rid of the quarry denies Francois some options, but it's possible that he's not going to hit the most important cards, which are the units, of course.
See the classic choice between 2 Fire Sigils.
Mm-hmm. This is pretty tricky here. Like, Francois is once again on Argenport on 2. That kind of curve, pretty threatening for Kelly, who does not have Torch or Suffocate. If you can't answer the Argenport right away, it does provide a significant amount of pressure as a 2-cost card.
Yeah, we may see a similar game as last game where Francois gets initiative and just never gives it back.
Kelly's hand is just full of power and spells. There's no units, no pressure here. That's going to be a tough matchup. And there's another Stone Scar banner. Not really much worth playing.
Even like Death Striking this Argenport is, you don't feel good. You kind of have to do it because you can't just keep hitting you, but they're probably going to play another 4-drop afterwards. You're just it's going to be hard for TV Kelly to get back initiative in this game.
He Death Strikes the 5/5. That deals some damage back to Francois. But 23 to 20, Kelly really needs to find something useful. Treachery might actually be good enough. Yeah, hits the Statuary Maiden. So he now knows that Francois has no other units in hand. If he can draw a Torch now, he can get back into this game.
Even a larger creature would kind of kill 2 birds with 1 stone, assuming that Francois can't remove it. That may be an unfair assumption, but we do see a Flame Blast here that he could choose to fire off at the Argenport. It is a big cost, and that's why he elects to not do so, but
yeah,
he's going to be paying a big cost.
It's going to be hard to say if that's right. I think that, like, overall, you're just getting pressured so heavily that you might need to Flame Blast the Argenport Instigator. Both of these players are basically on burn spells.
And now you're kind of like in for a penny, in for a pound with the Flame Blast. Like, you didn't Flame Blast it last turn, so like now what changed this turn? You should probably not Flame Blast it either. So just got in 6 damage and
Now he's
not a
in
great spot.
a spot of trouble. He can Flame Blast the Steward of the Past, and that actually does put him in a much better position. Francois
Yeah.
will have to burn an Obliterate or something to get this 3/3 out of the way, and TV Kelly can start cracking back if he needs to.
Yeah, having a 2-spell turn there to get ahead on board, at least for the moment, before any potential removal spells are played, is definitely a good spot for TV Kelly. If Francois doesn't have anything for this Champion of Chaos, TV Kelly could claw back into this game.
Corey does probably fetch something. Not willing to attack, though. Really curious as to what Francois pulled off of that Corey. Could have been a power, could have been any number of things. Vara's favor going in for 14, and 12 is what Kelly is at. So from here, Kelly can actually push enough to potentially Flame Blast for the win if that 5/5 isn't dealt with.
And we see that's likely the reason he chose to attack. TV Kelly only has 2 Flame Blasts in his deck, so he's a little bit behind on that. He's the Infernal Tyrant. Should swing the race pretty heavily in Francois' favor.
So the champion deals, again, no attack with the champion. The champion deals 4, kills the Infernal Tyrant, and then basically just allows for... this is probably not very good. But yeah, deals 4, then Francois gains 6, and Torch plus Flame Blast does in fact secure the win.
Yep, and that will be a 3-1 victory for Francois. All these games have been like pretty one-sided, although those like the actual games were pretty close. But again, like the turn 2 Archiport Instigator was probably the most important play because you can just start pressuring your opponent, get initiative, use removal spells, stay ahead on board, and just it's so hard for the Stone Scar deck to come back.
Yeah, looks like Francois has secured a pretty significant victory, and TV Kelly is going to just be logging for the night. So we will see Francois in the finals.